their love came from God.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. The problem is that marriage, of course, is not just about love and commitment. As the law understands it at the moment, it is a comprehensive conjugal biological union with the capability of giving rise to children who are then raised by their birth parents and everything else about the marriage.
Lots of gay people have children,
Absolutely.
are having children. Is it not better? Here's the question, is it not better that those children are raised within marriage?
Well, many children are being raised at the moment in many ways by foster parents, by gay couples, by single parents, by divorced parents, and they're bringing them up magnificently. But that doesn't make them marriage. Marriage at the moment, as the law understands it, has a particular sign value, which is to say that the gold standard for the upbringing of children is being raised by their birth parents. That's what gives them that sense of identity. Because the benefits of that, and by the way, we are talking here about reform to civil marriage. I think the whole sacramental question in a way is irrelevant, because this is a reform to civil marriage. So the question is, does it serve society to redefine marriage in such a way that same-sex couples can marry, if it means downgrading marriage from that definition to a mere domestic partnership between any two people? The evidence suggests that if you do that, you downgrade the importance of marriage in the eyes of society, you make people less likely to marry, and indeed in other countries which have introduced same-sex marriage, we have fewer people marrying and greater divorce rates.
Well, Michael Gove in the newspaper today, the Secretary of State for Education, is a big supporter of this, one of the Conservatives who are supporting it despite the up to 200 backbenchers who aren't. He says this will absolutely, contrary to your point, this will reinforce marriage. We'll come back to you.
But the evidence is against it, that's all.
Is the evidence against it?
Yes, the evidence from other countries is that it...
Yes, sir.
No, I don't
Thanks very much.
that.
I was just going to say that exact... Not often I agree with Michael Gove, but on this he's right. Marriage equality will strengthen the institution of marriage. Now, I'm not religious, so I'm not really bothered about it from a religious point of view, although I agree a lot with what our friend says here. But this is about equality. We don't want anything different. Those of us who are gay just happen to want equality. And I also happen to believe that people who are heterosexual should also be able to have civil partnerships. But if I defy anyone in this audience to say that we shouldn't allow to be equal.
Yeah.
All right. Is this about equality? David wanted to come in.
Yes, Nicky,
another dog collar.
Yeah, just to answer the question, and we've had 3 questions today, and the answer to the first one for me was yes, the second one was no, and this one is yes as well, because I don't actually see what the real problem is here. Wait a minute. You posed it at the very beginning, and you asked the question about a civil partnership and a blessing. What is interesting, of course, and we've used the word sacrament, is that in the Western Church, the tradition is that the sacrament of marriage is affected by the couple themselves.
Absolutely.
They marry each other, and the Church is only there to give a blessing of that marriage. Hence, it's called in the prayer book the solemnisation of matrimony. So, in a sense, there's a lot of confusion there as to what is actually going on. The other point about children, of course, raises all sorts of other interesting issues.
It does.
What about people that are in their 60s or 70s? Are we assuming that if they get married, then it isn't a marriage because it's unlikely to bring forth children? People that have other disabilities, or people that are unable, people that are unwilling, are we actually saying they can't marry, they will not be married? There's a whole range of very different scenarios here, and we confuse them very easily to make another point, and quite often the other point is actually a degree of homophobia.
First of all, the law already prohibits a very large number of people from marrying. For example, if you're already married, you can't then marry somebody else. You can't marry more than one person. There's a whole series of prohibitions. Needs, age of consent, freedom to marry. There are all kinds of qualifications. Marriage discriminates by virtue of the fact that it is an institution which promotes certain goods. In the same way, let me finish, the same way that pensions discriminate against young people. You know, I mean, to uphold a certain good, the law has to discriminate. The question is...
Pensions discriminate against young people. That's next week's big question.
Well, how did you know? Is it unjust discrimination? That's the question. And it isn't unjust discrimination because if you have to redefine marriage to allow same-sex couples, you change the nature of marriage.
Sharon from the